but don't talk about them because what? It said end stream. Why did it do
that? No, don't press end stream.
Do
I
not
didn't. No, the button says end stream. Yeah, I thought it had ended the stream. I'm a novice here. I don't know what I'm doing. I got up at 1 o'clock this morning. I'm terrible.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be in the world. And actually, could somebody in the comments tell us if we actually are here?
There goes my phone.
There goes his phone.
Yeah, we're live. It says on the thing, live. We've been live for 35 seconds. It's time to go.
So, yeah, absolutely. 35 seconds too long. Well, where do we start? Just before we started, we've been talking about that F-35. I mean, that is just nonsense. No, we're not here. Thanks, John. John says we're not here. Good. he's got the measure of us, hasn't he? 80 miles. Was it 80 miles you boys said?
Yeah, 80 miles, I reckon.
Wow. That's quite extraordinary, isn't it?
I thought it would fly further than that.
Well, I do have an, as ever, a pull up a sandbag story, and I remember this one very, very well because a Harrier in the UK made 700 miles before it went. So there's some sort of and what happened with this one was that, some of the ejector seats fire a bolt out first to pull the drogue chute out. That went dink in the top of the seat, and it put a hole in the canopy, and he got dragged out through that hole, and that was the end of him. But it flew on, so the rest of the seat was still in the aircraft. They put aircraft alongside it to have a look, and they could see the seat was still in the aircraft, and the canopy looked fairly intact. So they wondered at the time, I remember this, what on earth had happened. But that went 700 miles. And the irony of this is when the Harrier and the F-35 is the replacement for the Harrier, it went 10 times further than the F-35 when nobody was on board. Much better airplane. That's my logic anyway. No, it's quite extraordinary, isn't it? So what are we saying? Was it BV loss, free flight? I mean, what mode should they set on the transmitter before that?
It was cruise. It was just set to cruise, wasn't it?
No. Advanced return to home. The latest firmware update from DJI. He did not get it, so he didn't land. So yesterday there was an update from DJI. Oh, sorry. F-35 does not get the firmware from DJI, right?
No. Okay. It's probably from China, somewhere else in China.
I think we've got in the comments. I think Mick no failsafe set has actually been working on the F-35s recently, the Australian ones, I think. But yeah, no, what a Horlicks, really quite amazing. But wasn't a recreational flight, so it was Part 107 in America. So he must have had RID, because it's after the 16th, and this is something that's really beginning to wind me up now. Actually, everyone's saying no, it's all right. Nothing's going to happen until next March. It's no. Read the small print, and also consider that the FAA are like one small part of the who might come after you chain. Or am I wrong in thinking that? Do you think, Bruce?
I think they have delegated enforcement to law enforcement, I think, as well, because they had all those training courses and things and all the online material training law enforcement officers to deal with remote ID and so forth. So law enforcement does have the right. And because it's something that's been mandated by Congress, I dare say the other three-letter agencies will also be very interested in what's going on. Yes. And if you're caught without remote ID, you will be by default a terrorist.
Yeah. Well, or something, but it's
or Russell Brand. That's just as bad.
I've not been following that. I can't stand the bloke anyway. So
I know, but you got to wonder when someone can lose their YouTube monetization and their publisher and all the other contracts because of, at this stage, what are simply allegations.
Allegations.
That the world is a very, very dark and dystopian place right now.
Yeah, it's true enough. Yeah, it's not cool for allegations. And what's Mick saying? Does the ejected pilot count as the controller? Well,
he's the pilot in command.
He was. He signed for the aeroplane, didn't he?
Yeah. Isn't there the figure of the peak pilot in charge? Is he considered pilot not in charge? So
that's a picnic.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm surprised that they can't. Not even the US government can actually track their own aircraft. Do you know what I mean? This thing flew for 80 miles, but no one knew where it went.
Flight Radar 24 had a path for it. But what happened is the transponder turned off. And what I want to know is, why did he eject? It flew for another 80 miles. It wasn't an imminent emergency. It wasn't like the engine had failed or anything like that. So why did he eject in the first place?
He mispressed the coffee button.
Well, because the F-35 is such a horrible Horlicks of an aircraft, he just sod it, I'll get out of here.
I've had enough of this.
Sod it, yeah. I've had enough. I want my Phantom back or something. It's been a terrible thing throughout its career. So any number of reasons. But yeah, you're
Maybe
right.
it just spent AI, all the AI systems that decided we don't need the wetware. Let's kick it out and keep on flying.
Oh, don't talk. This week, I don't know why. My inbox, has your inbox been full of people wanting to do stuff with AI with drones? I've been inundated with it. It's seen a drone. That's it, Johnny. That must have been what it was. Yikes! There's a Mavic. Let's get out of here. And Mitchell
said it was a shopping bag.
Yeah, the barrier to entry for law enforcement in place with receivers as solo will become de facto foot in the door. Absolutely, and it's it feels very much the told you so. There's Kenji who got his patent based on being at one of the meetings, and they've just come in with that drone responders group to start placing RID receivers all over America, and that's a private setup, if you will. The FAA's asked ANRA to do it, but this is a private setup, and that very quickly will become the flight aware of drone tracking and others.
Here's the thing, and this is one of the worst things about RID. If you're a smart drone operator, you'll be able to look at this RID data, because once it's been collected by someone, you'll be able to go back and review it anyway. But you're going to be able to work out who's working for who. You will know who's working at that quarry. You'll know who their client is, right? This can lead to a lot of dirty tactics, because those people want those contracts.
Yeah.
You know, there's no way to hide. There's no way for you to do anything. And, you know, some companies do publish their data sets. They go, oh, look what this 3D thing we did for XYZ. And people will be able to go and look and see how it was done. You know, your unique flying techniques, everything can be revealed by RID. And it's not good for the industry in many respects. You know, if you
remember that the courts have already ruled there's no expectation of privacy when you're flying a drone, so there's no legal challenge to it.
Yeah, and you know, for commercial users and commercial operators, this should be a big concern. But it's like, oh, it doesn't matter. They say the industry is going to be worth millions, as we all know, and billions, as they keep publishing, you know, every year, you know, inspection is just going to be worth this, that, and the other. There are people out there that will be able to scrape this data, work out who's doing what for who, and then they'll either sell that data to drone companies or they will make use of it themselves. One or two things are going to happen.
No, you're wrong. They'll use it to train a new AI model that will do it all by itself. Done.
And you're right, Louis. That could be a big one, especially when you can see
patent registered already. I'm like the guy from Drone Responders. Already registered the patents.
And this is the thing is, Louis, you're quite right, because once you
that's interesting. Sorry. I was just saying that's interesting from Mick. I didn't know that happened from Mineral from ADSB. That is interesting.
Yeah, you can see survey planes tracking, can't you, across countries? So you could quite happily work out they're doing a big quarry or something. I mean, Louis is right. And the kicker is, not all of us use apps to fly. If you've got a certain way of getting that 3D model or flying that inspection route, you'll use a certain thing. But AI, as Louis says, you'll just be able to train it to follow the same sort of system. Yeah.
Scrape it, inject it on your training model, and your training model gets better and better every day.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite scary, the amount of stuff that could be lost to this. You know, if you're a commercial business and a big one, it is a bit of a concern.
Oh, come on. Even after all this crazy stuff that we found, we're still here. So, hey, Bruce has been crying wolf all these years, and we're still here. So let's look at the glass half full.
But maybe not all here.
No.
Yeah.
So, okay then, Louis. So, which way do you want to look at the glass then, as required? Through your rose tinted, put on your rose tinted ridge spectacles and tell us how you see it as a positive thing.
Hold on.
What's safe? I want to know what safety and security it brings to the world, but it doesn't.
Okay. Good looking glasses. No, come on. The capability of some of those scrapers / opportunist companies that are trying to get the airspace, they won't be smart enough to use the data, or they won't be able to use the data. I think we are giving them too much credit. Look at what's going on with all the manufacturers of drones. We, besides the commercial, the recreational and the market, we are seeing a flurry of new small companies bubbling up and getting more and more importance every time. I was astounded by the number of, sorry to bring this up, the number of partners, commercial partners that ArduPilot has managed to join. And most of them have very good and viable commercial products that perform very, very well. And the thing is, they're here, and they don't need, most of them, they don't need any of these so-called infrastructure stuff. So they'll be able to use the regular ADSBs or remote IDs or whatever without any issues, and no concerns of scrapers or opportunists, guys that are after the data. I don't see a problem coming up.
I'm not sure I understand that really. But it's okay to have a. So yeah, maybe RID won't affect their businesses because they're starting to sell something, and RID is just a module to them. But the way it's rolling out and the amount of airtime it's had, and are massively dangerous. That F-35 flying 80 miles across America has to be more dangerous than, I don't know. Well, how many 250-gram drones would fit into an F-1 down the jet pipe, I suppose, and that'll do it. But would fit into an F-35 and cause that?
Maybe it was a sub 250 F-35.
Maybe, yeah.
But the whole, as I said in the video I did the other day, the whole manned aviation, it's becoming, there's been a lot of stuff. There was those 2 pilots died in the Reno air races just the other day. And we've seen that Italian Air Force jet crash and kill a 5-year-old.
Yes,
but terrible. These things, everyone's happy with this level of risk. No one's saying we need to change the rules because too many people are dying. No, this level of risk is fine. But we can't possibly allow anyone to be killed by a drone. That's a whole different thing. You know, one person dies with a drone, the world will die. You know, people will lose their minds because a drone has killed somebody. Recreational drones killed somebody. But every day people are killing themselves and others in manned aviation, and we're just ignoring that risk. I've seen no changes to regulations to try and reduce that level of risk.
As far as I can tell, it's now easier for me to go and fly a microlight.
Yeah, absolutely.
To go and fly a microlight, and then it is to fly my drones, which is ridiculous.
And one thing, and last couple of weeks, I've been seeing other companies operating drones, and I've noticed a clear move of those regular engagements of drone pilots of shooting weddings and all of that stuff. Most, if not all of them, went to the sub 250-gram drones. So unless you have a very specific reason or need to go above 250, most of the drone commercial work will be done with sub 250 grams. So those of us that have businesses running and have specific needs to go well above 250 grams, we have no issues. Only issue we might have is those random so-called updates from DJI or from Hotel that bring new functionalities to the system. Other than that, hey, no issues.
And we're just about to see the Mavic Mini Pro 4 or 4 Mini, whatever it is. And he looked to one side. Have you got one there? And that's going to obviously be quite a cool 250-gram machine. I'll say near to the release, but it'll be very good. But it's not exciting anymore, is it? It's not exciting.
Like the new
iPhone.
iPhone.
At it versus the Mini 3 Pro. Oh God! Just smack me in the face, and they're the same. They're absolutely the same. Mini 3 Pro. There's not much that you can do to innovate over there. They're at the limit unless they come up with nuclear fusion in a box. There's not much they can do on that thing. They can improve the cameras. Yes, they can. They need to improve the cameras. Yes, they must. Do they want to? That's another problem because they have the big enterprise drones that they want to sell. So let's see. And I think they made a mistake because they've enabled SDK support on the Mini 3 Pro. I'm almost sure that the Mini 4 Pro will not have SDK support because it's a consumer drone. So let's see.
They reckon it's got waypoints. Whether that means
that does not
do
mean
what we want.
it
It doesn't. No, I know.
With more commercial stuff being done with sub 250, will we see an enterprise version of the Mini?
There is an enterprise version of the Mini. It's the Mini 3 Pro that has full enterprise, full SDK support. Yeah. That's why I'm saying the Mini 4 Pro, I don't think they will have SDK support. Yeah. So, but
they as I say, for 99% of what I do, the tiny thing's perfectly fine. The little Autel I've got, it's absolutely fine. It's good enough.
But that's the point. Hey, we all want Ferraris to go down to the coffee shop. Do we need Ferraris to go to the coffee shop, or we can just walk?
I think a Lamborghini would be as good.
I think Bruce just leaves, and Bruce only has them to go to the coffee shop.
Yeah,
and he's so wealthy off this, he leaves them there. Exactly. Yeah, he just leaves them parked up.
You can't get near our coffee shop now.
No, I can't get there for Lamborghinis.
Fully abandoned Lamborghinis.
Yeah. No, I think they've definitely boxed themselves in the corner, and you're bang on right, Louis. If you get most jobs done with the sub 250, you have got to have a good reason to get bigger, or it's got to be really make sense for your business.
I was on a wedding, and the photographers, videographers were all going nuts with their Mini 2 Pros, Mini 3 Pros, and I went, "Why don't you guys use the bigger drones?" "Oh no, these are good enough, and we don't need no permits." Done.
Surely a C1 aircraft would be good for them. A C1 rated aircraft in Europe would be good enough. You could fly a heavier aircraft. The only rule being anyone not involved, you just have to not deliberately overfly them.
Yeah, but look at the thing. what would be the big advantage of having a C1 aircraft camera?
Yeah.
Right, and the camera would have to be much better. Because the results, what is amazing is the results they can do with shitty, not so shitty, but not so good camera sensors, because they are picking up the technology from the smartphones. And
Yeah.
come on, 90% of pictures done today in the world are done with the camera phones. So they're going where the market is. Come on, you are used to take a picture out of one of these cameras, and they're just good enough.
No,
And
definitely.
that's
Yeah.
come on, and 90% of the work done with the commercial flights is done with cameras. You might have a specific need for a LiDAR, a multispectral, a FLIR camera. Hey, but the percentage of normal RGB cameras is the most majority.
And from a recreational perspective, I've seen a lot of people saying they're going to skip the upgrade cycle because they've already got a couple of drones. They all work perfectly well. And it's that you don't, with money tight, you're not going to buy something just because it's there. You have to have a justification for it. And the justification doesn't match the prices, because the prices are going up significantly for almost everything that's new. Look at new cars. I mean, look at how much they've gone up. And it's just a way of getting around. And in fact, in America, I saw something that second-hand cars are selling for the same price as new cars, because there's deliberately been not only supply chain issues, but shortages produced by manufacturers to keep the prices high. The whole price value thing is way out of whack. I go to the supermarket now, it costs me $10 for eggs that used to cost me $5. It's doubled in price. My breakfast cereal's doubled in price. Everything that people don't have the disposable money to say, oh, a new DJI drone, I'll have one of those. And I don't know where DJI is going to go from here.
No, and by the way, you should switch from breakfast cereals to eggs and bacon. That will be more.
I have eggs and bacon for tea.
Yeah, but the thing is, someone in the chat is saying that camera in C1 is up to M430 sensor. Yeah, but people don't care. We care because we are geeks. But people don't care. Hey, I love my Nikon camera that is somewhere around with its full frame sensor, crazy expensive and heavy lens. Yeah, lately 99% of the images are done on the phone.
Well, Gorilla Drones, you're saying your clients care.
Or you can do all the post-processing as well.
Who cares? Some clients, hey, if you are going to do a movie for a commercial, if you're going to do a Netflix series, yes, you have to go crazy with the camera quality. But then M430s, 1-inch full frame, where do you stop? Red and ARRI cameras, and then you enter the DJI bigger drones.
Yeah, it's definitely 250 gram. I mean, they, as you said, the cameras have got to get in sub 250. The cameras have got to get better, but that's definitely where most of the work.
They're good enough for most people, though, eh?
Good enough. They're good enough. Yeah. And the well, the other place where more of the work now is loitering munitions. that's the current darling. I would have said we've gone from delivery drones now. We're in a bit of
a still a delivery drone.
They are a delivery drone, exactly. Yeah, one way. And I'm quite amazed at how. And so that's got me thinking this week about how the primes are looking at it. And I wrote a little thing about, because I really did work in the Air Force with a chap. Well, he was my boss, but who was an aero modeling genius, Chris Golds, but I didn't actually know that. 18-year-old me eventually knew that. And for him to get in charge of creating stuff on a squadron, it would have been amazing. But there will be just the same, that expertise will be there at Air Force stations all around the world, Navy stations, Army stations, whatever they call them. But So what I'm trying to say is the big military vendors now will be starting to going, oh my lorks, we can't hide behind our special autopilots and all that sort of thing, because there's people built in that will be able to make this stuff. And
Well,
go on, mate.
I was going to say, one of the best things they've got, which they need to tap into, is pilot training, because actually FPV pilot training needs to be done. And that skill set of flying everything, you've just given them the free training center. That there is so valuable. And it's not just about multi-rotor. We've seen a lot of multi-rotor in action. However, being able to fly a fixed wing to do the same thing, a small fixed wing, 1 meter across, to do the same sort of job, more than possible.
The Aussies have got it nailed. They've got a military drone racing team, the army drone racing team or something.
Yeah.
And then they make the cardboard fixed wing drones there. I mean, Australia is the nation of the future, I tell you.
Well, they've got the best autopilots.
Yeah, it was. And it's in the future, like New Zealand. So it is the nation of the future. No, you're right. They have got it nailed, and the air cadets having their system as well. But it's the primes, the people in offices where they. You imagine, they'll have to have 4 or 5 meetings and decide exactly which biscuits they're having before they even do anything. And they're 4 or 5. By the time they've had their 4 or 5 meetings,
it's too late.
Privateers will have iterated 5 or 6 times. It's a very interesting time. No, it struck me that this week, largely because of the number of press releases I'm getting for loitering munitions, as Bruce cleverly says, delivery drones. But it's quite the fashion. There's many at that DSEI exhibition in London, and people reinventing the wheel. Go on, mate. Sorry,
I was going to say I should have gone with a swarm, shouldn't I? Go, how many do you want in the air at once, please?
Yeah, no, exactly, and let's face it, that's why swarms really were advanced. It wasn't for light shows. That's not why people did it.
I prefer the light show version.
Yeah, well, quite, and yeah, SIPAC, Mick, that's exactly it. But that's at the end of the day, that SIPAC thing is a flight test, something or other. It's not a flight test, something or other, but it might as well be a flight test, something or other, with an autopilot in it. Job done. I didn't see I can't remember what Philip's new one cost. The one which is GPS and flight controller in one. I think it was 200. It was 250 quid. And that's it. So if you want one not made in China and of reasonable quality, 250 quid. Robert's your father's brother. Everything all in one, which is nothing for that sort of thing. Or now, what are you sending us here?
No, what I'm sending is in line of what we've discussing now, because the Portuguese Navy just did one of the largest exercises over here for that has lots of people coming from foreign navies and army, and they have a bunch of remote operated vehicles, some quite funny, but lots of operational vehicles operating. So I believe that we are not taking into account that people are really coming up with new technology coming to the different navies. I believe there was UK people here too. So,
the biggest test center in the world is now live. And these things will get tested in the real world because the testing ground is available to be used, and it'll be innovation from around the world on different designs, different ways of doing things, and it's going to be very interesting because there won't, one thing doesn't fit all. Of course, as we know with drones, it's the right drone for the right job. So there's going to be different things needed out there, be it ground, be it air, be it water. There's going to be lots of things, and it's going to be really interesting. I mean, it is going to change warfare forevermore. This what's going on has changed warfare forevermore. it used to be about air supremacy, didn't it? If you it's like the Brits, the Americans, Western world, we all go for air superiority. But right now, that it's not showing. It's not needed as much. It's quite bizarre. Really.
Well, I don't know. I think they like quite a bit.
Drones.
I think they'd like quite a bit more of it. And Mick, it's interesting you teach that cadets. You'll have to come on and I'd like to see exactly how that runs. That looks like a very, very future looking or forward looking syllabus from the Australian Air Cadets. Very exciting, I suppose. For me, as a with my primary school teacher hat on, it would be very hard to fly drones outside and do stuff just because of the regulations here. It would take me into a different set of regs. So for me, it would be, as it was interesting to see those Navy guys at it. Boats and rovers would be the way of the path of least resistance for me to do that sort of thing. But you could get most of the stuff done with Mission Planner and flight, mission, all sorts of things you could get done, which would be a transferable skill.
Do you have a sports hall at all? Do you have a big sports hall? Could you do like an indoor?
I used to like peanut scale stuff, so maybe some sticking, but that wouldn't be about the drone. That would be more about the building skills that children need.
Tiny whoops for racing around inside.
True.
That will really bring on a skill set.
Autonomous microfilm models.
Yeah, I've never even seen one of those in real life, but those look like quite a trip. Those things, but if I was in America and I made a YouTube video for that, I'd need to make it RID compliant, wouldn't I?
Yes, you would. Yes, everything has to be RID compliant.
Yeah,
no tiny whoops commercially.
But even those microfilm things are so a RID device.
I don't know. Does it apply to free flight?
Yeah, probably doesn't apply to free flight.
No.
But imagine how many of those microfilm things you could have for the weight of one RID unit. You could have lots. It'd be quite a thing. Yeah. So I think it was you, Bruce, made a video about the effect on reviewing stuff, review channels in America now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to basically kill them because if you say you get the average review video might make $50 or something. There's not a lot of money, and especially these days. So someone sends you a Chinese drone to review. You've got to invest the time in making it work, setting it up. Then you've got to buy a remote ID module for $100, put it on there so you can fly it legally, register it with the FAA, and so you get $50 back for your $100 plus time input. There's no, you can't sustain that. That's not sustainable. So it's just, it kills it. Absolutely kills it.
But
and also, if you're going to do a build video, say you get a frame and you want to build it up, you're supposed to buy, according to the regs, put standard remote ID in there. How are you going to do that?
Can't you just buy one RID unit though and just swap it across the models?
No, it has to be a unique serial number for each drone. Unique RID serial number for each drone.
Oh, that's interesting. Mick says they start indoors. That is interesting.
Unless you go like the swarms, you register all your drones as part of a swarm.
Yeah, but you can't because they're not flying as a swarm. There's very few exemptions. I'm only for the military and police and 3-letter agencies. Everyone else has to have RID.
Which, it makes no sense because how to trigger mass hysteria, all it has to be is one of those three flying and no one knows in the right place, and before you know it, everyone will be hunting on one of those three in mass hysteria. It's like, why is that flying at this event? Whose is it? This, that, and the other. And it could be a long track if they're not careful to find the person. It's one of ours.
Oh, there's a note for Bruce there in the chat. And did we all see that that aircraft shot down in the UK shot down by a shotgun? And the carve out for it's not really it's not really an aeroplane, is it? No, there's no one on board.
In the USA, interesting enough, that no, it's in the UK. They seem to have all the responsibilities of a manned aircraft, but none of the privileges. It's like, you get the worst of everything, and that's crazy because it's expressly omitted under the regulations that you have. It's not illegal to interfere with a drone flight, as far as I understand it.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though: discharging a firearm like that should get you in serious trouble with the local police.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
If you're on your own property and you're not endangering anybody, I think you've got a right to fire a firearm. Otherwise, what could you use it for? You don't have to have, you can shoot a firearm into the air as long as it's not going to endanger anybody. There's no law against that. It's not reckless discharge. So as long as he wasn't shooting at something, somebody, then I think legally he's probably, if he's a farm owner, it's on his own property and there was no chance of that shot hurting anybody, I think he's probably legally entitled to discharge it. He could have been shooting at a pheasant or a some kind of bird in the air or something, a duck.
It's destroying someone else's property. Now, if it was spooking sheep, because in the UK there are certain rules around owning a shotgun, so a farmer can own a shotgun, and if dogs are attacking the sheep, for example, pestering them, he has a right to defend the sheep, and he can use a gun to do that. However, to actually willfully destroy someone's property with a shotgun, I'm not so sure.
He was just firing a warning shot through the battery.
Well, the thing that the guy was filming an event, a public event, a classic car thing, wasn't it, or something? So maybe he was flying a shot away from the event, but how would you know for certain that there wasn't going to be anybody? That seems to be quite reckless to me, to discharge a firearm in any direction when there's a public event happening in the next field. That would strike me as reckless.
Interesting thing, though, is if you're worried about the drone falling down and hurting somebody, it's a sub 250. You can fly it over people anyway. So the risk of it falling on someone by rules doesn't seem to be very high.
No, I'm not worried about the drone falling down on somebody. I'm worried about where the pellets would go.
Shotgun pellets. If you're firing at an angle into the air, when they fall down, they don't hurt anybody. That's why they use shotguns. You can't. I don't know about in the UK, but you're not allowed to fire at birds with a centerfire rifle in New Zealand. You're not allowed to, because the bullet, if it went in a big trajectory, could hurt somebody. But with shotgun pellets, their ballistic coefficient is such that they lose velocity very quickly, and then they just drop full like rain.
Well, still don't think it's a good idea.
Not a good idea, but I mean, if I was a lawyer arguing, for the defense,
I suppose so. But yeah.
Otherwise, you wouldn't be allowed to discharge any firearm into the air because you don't know who someone could be behind a hedge just over the, where you can't see. You can't, unless you surveyed the whole area, make sure with your drone to make sure there were no people hiding behind hedges or where you couldn't see them. Those pellets could travel, half a mile, and there might be someone over there. So in that case, you could never safely discharge a firearm into the air or shotgun.
I mean, at the end of the day, it will be down to the local firearm police department, because over here it's the police that decide if you can or cannot own a firearm, and if there's been a complaint against him, he would have to be fully investigated by them, and they'll either decide yes or no to him keeping that firearm. He could have cost himself his firearm, but we don't know.
I'm just hoping it was DJ Audits flying the drone.
Yeah, I know. I must admit, I did feel like finding a chap and congratulating him and said, "Go and look for DJ Audit." So I did,
shoot the orange bike while you're at it.
Yeah, I did feel that when I saw that. But the action of just shooting something at as you say, Mark, somebody's property out of the sky. Because another way you could look at it is now you've denied that person access to their property. Of course, it was flying within an airfield's, I've forgotten the word for it over there. FLZ. So, yeah.
Sean brought up a good thing in a video this morning. Did you watch Sean's video on how the drone code was worded and how it's dangerous? Because basically the drone code says you can, some apps will tell you if you're in a restricted area, and some drones, have that technology built in. They don't say do never rely on it, always check a legitimate source. They say you might as well rely on the drone, in which case the DJI exclusion area is usually much smaller than the actual FRZ.
It is, and it is scary, because what they really mean is you should be checking an aviation chart. But who's ever had an aviation chart now? I mean, I've not had one for years now. I used to remember back when I started, I had to get out my map, I had to work out, right, I'm flying an over 7 kilo aircraft. So if it's in class D, I actually have to ask permission. Between 7 and 20 kilos, I had to actually ask in class D. But sub 7, you could fly anywhere. So, there was always this big thing where self-builds under 7 kilos, because then we could just fly where we wanted.
Well, I'm sure it always used to be, although I do think it's relaxed a little bit, but it always used to be that the paper chart, that was it. That was Bible, finished, done, klar. They wouldn't let you rely on electronic devices as a means of navigational compliance. So I think it's slackened up a little bit. But I
don't know why. It worked for the US Marine Corps this week. It navigated that plane all the way to the scene of the crash.
Point it that way. 80. Gosh, it is astonishing, isn't it? And as you say, if the guy did jump out for no good reason, they'll be after him now. They'll be in a lot of trouble.
It's just luck that nobody died, like that Russian swing wing aircraft that crashed beside the apartment block. It's just luck that these things, and luck is great. An ounce of luck's worth a pound of prevention, but you can't rely on luck. It shouldn't be in your safety program. Luck. Number one, luck. Let's be lucky. Okay, you can't do that. You plan for the worst and hope for the best.
And the CA did just release its safety statement, didn't it, for everything from manned aviation to drones, all the way through, and yet still no deaths in the UK from a drone. Since 2002, since CAP 722 appeared, if you want to, if that's the kind of marking point, for a multi-rotor, still no deaths. And not across Europe, I believe, as well. I believe it's not just the UK that exists. I mean, Australia's the same, I believe. New Zealand's the same. The USA's the same. I mean, what's going on? The rules get tighter and tighter, yet still.
And now, using the authorities' point of view, see, nothing has happened because the rules have been tighter and tighter.
Oh. Hey, but nothing happened when the rules were loose.
Yeah.
don't confuse causality and effect.
I mean,
but
they're better than that.
Certainly fewer, very sadly, Dorvans, certainly fewer deaths in the Reno air races, and that's such a shame, because this was the last one anyway, wasn't it? I think this year.
Yeah, I think they're counting them, aren't they?
Yeah, I think it was the last one, and it was such a shame that it was not a racing accident, a landing accident, and proving once again, look, and the technology is there in 2023 to put a reasonably wide-angled camera on the underside of every single aircraft and feed into the cockpit a view through your feet. And why aren't we doing that? There's lots of
lane
examples.
assist stuff that we have in cars.
Exactly, yeah. And when you put it in park, it just pulls it back in. Yeah, no, exactly. Yes, it's in cars. Yeah, my parents are here, and they got a tiny cheapest chips hire car, and that's got the reversing camera. Why isn't this sort of thing?
Because aviation doesn't change quickly. Aviation's based on 1950s technology. Even today, you can look at a Continental or a Lycoming, a Cessna 172. These are trips back in time.
You guys know that when you go and do reverse, you put your arm around the other seat and you look.
That's only if there's a hot chick there, Louis.
And the other day, the son of a friend of mine saw me do that. Hey, you have the camera right here. Why are you doing that?
I said to the old man today, I just don't trust those cameras. I know they work. I know it's right. But it's just, I can't do it.
What about the new ones, though, where you can see around the entire car? Yeah. You see the car and everything around it. It's brilliant. So, you can drive into things sideways and hit them.
Yeah, but
You drift into your parking space.
technology just spoils us. And
Just imagine if planes could do that. I mean,
Yeah. But I was thinking, I reckon that if you look at modern cars, they're so expensive because of all the electronics. I reckon there's a demand out there for a super simple car, a Morris 1000 for the 2020s, with basic ignition, no ECU, so that when they drop bombs, the EMP won't knock them out and they won't get knocked out by solar storms. Just basic mechanical stuff you can fix with a spanner and a hammer. And I reckon you keep the price way down because the costs are really low for that sort of stuff in an automated environment. You could make it really cheap and affordable and not necessarily comfortable or fuel efficient, but at least it would be something that you could, fix yourself and rely on. Modern cars are just...
There's a slight problem with that, Bruce.
What's that?
2030.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it doesn't matter. You can run it on hydrogen.
No. You guys are wrong. The fuel of the future is you have to have a cow in your car so you can use the methane produced by cows. So it is a closed cycle.
No,
it's still burning.
Because they're reducing the methane
burning.
output of cows.
You're burning.
No. The new modern version for cars, right? The new cars are going to come with a hole in the footwell area. So you'll sit and there's going to be a hole in the floor.
Flintstones.
Back to the future.
Yes, Mr. Fred. Yes, Mr. Fred. But speaking about
everything comes back into fashion.
No, speaking about cameras
except
and
your
all of that,
jacket.
have you guys commented on that update of DJI that made the collision avoidance cameras available?
Yeah, did that last week, Louis. Where were you? We did that last week. Where were you?
Yeah. But
Yes, it's cool.
What's the conclusion of looking at those cameras?
It's a novel piece of fluff.
Yeah. So there's not much use of it, but yeah.
You don't need.
But it was free, Louis. Think of the value.
Yeah. Instead of one camera, now you have 5.
It's called distraction.
If you're keeping VLOS on the drone, you don't need anti-collision.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, right?
No, there's depth perception. I've seen people fly into things while they're looking straight at it because they don't judge the depth element properly.
Okay, so the forward sensing one would make sense then, because the forward sensing one gives you a rangefinder automatic.
Yeah, but when you're doing an orbit about something, that's when you usually hit a tree while you're going sideways.
What do you mean fly? If you're flying in a tight area, you'll always position yourself so you can see what's going on. If you're flying at distance, and we all know depth perception is absolutely, I would say, crap beyond 30 meters, maybe 50 meters, it's certainly useless. If you're flying in such areas where you are close proximity flying, as an RP, you will move yourself to make sure that aircraft isn't going to hit anything. I've flown in really tight places and I will sit and I will literally, from where I've taken off from, I might have walked 50 meters to make sure I'm happy that I'm not going to end up in a tree or a building or something. VLIS, just keep an eye, be aware of things around you. It is one of the biggest mishaps. So in one of the safety reports, I think it was Chirp or one of our reports that came out from the CA, the amount of people that hit trees is astounding. It is absolutely, and I look at it, I just read it and just going, pilot error.
No. I can tell you exactly what kind of trees, the
they
name
move.
of the trees. It's the ones that have wheels and move around.
The jumping ones.
Magnetic ones.
Go and move around. And very fast. You almost cannot see it.
Bamboo grows quickly.
Yeah. Even faster than that.
Yeah, you're right. But it's just, I just found it amazing. If you always set your return to home height higher than the tallest thing in the area, always. The first thing you do on site is my return to home height high enough? Yes or no? If I've got smart return to home, that's even better because I'll switch.
What if you beside something that's 400 feet high?
Just fly on the right side of it and make sure that you're not returning to home. You know what I mean? Don't fly through it. basically, is what I'm going
So
to
you
say.
can't fly around it then?
Well, you can do a smart return to home.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it just depends upon the aircraft you're flying. But just make sure you return to home height set enough, and just make sure that if you're flying in a tight area, that you're making sure that you can see if your aircraft is going to fit in the gap or not. And if it's not, don't try and go in the gap.
Just get a smaller aircraft. Again, another benefit of sub 250. All the gaps are bigger.
All the gaps are bigger. Do those smart return to homes sort of, well, talking about gaps, filling the gaps now, or do they return via the way you went out still? I'm paying attention.
On autopilot is the breadcrumb method.
Yeah.
But you can enable the collision avoidance sensors, but most of the drones that people build themselves with autopilot don't have that. On DJI, depends on the mode, but some of them will have the anti-collision and will fly around or try to fly above. I don't remember the correct order.
Sometimes they will even try to fly under. So I remember John telling me he did a flight test with someone with a Mavic Pro 2. They had the smart return to home on. And instead of going over the tree, it could see the gap under the tree. So it did. It went under the tree to return to home, which I thought was pretty smart, pretty clever. But, you know, you don't want people walking and running around when it does that, really.
No, you don't want to be doing real estate survey of a house with lots of large windows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
it make it interesting.
But with the breadcrumb technique, surely that then halves your battery life, because you can only fly as far away as you can fly back.
No, it's smart. It's smarter than that, because it optimizes. So if you stay on the same place running around, he won't try to undo all those stuff.
It's not like control line then.
Hey, Bruce, give some credit to the autopilot people.
Yeah.
Come on.
That assumes. What if you fly a path where there's no intersecting parts of the path? So you would have to backtrack the entire thing because there's no shortcuts.
No.
For it to make a shortcut, it has to assume that there's two parts of the path that do not have an obstruction between them. So they would have to backtrack all the way. So if you were flying not in a small area, but flying, sort of around a larger area without overlaying flight paths, then it would still have to backtrack the entire thing. So you get half the range.
No. It optimizes the return home so if there are crossing paths, it will optimize that.
Yeah, but if there's no crossing paths, it can't do anything.
It can't do that, obviously.
No.
Yeah,
but that's the only way to do it in a sensible way without having
without the sensors.
Without sensors.
AI will fix all this.
Yeah, definitely.
No,
go to Google Earth.
Fixing that.
I mean,
you just go and buy a $500 camera plus a $200 camera. You just add 400 grams to your drone and be done with that.
Just fly FPV.
Just buy DJI because it's got it built in and it just works.
Until it doesn't.
Yeah, until it does.
Yeah.
But you got to have the right DJI for smart return to home and stuff. But yeah, it is very cool. I do like it. It's very
just
smart.
tie a string to it and reel it in.
Yeah, and you'd want I haven't thought about this for a long time. You'd want RTK GPS as well, really, if you really wanted to make your life easier.
Well, RTK GPS is interesting, but normal GPS is only 3 meters out. It's only when you want ultimate precise flying do you really want the RTK.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, and then you do want it. That's when you want RTK for.
But if you want to come back smartly, that 3 meters might make all the difference when you've got some interpolated points.
And it's not 3 meters. I can tell you, it's much less than that, especially on the vertical. Especially on the vertical, because we have to use it, because otherwise we don't get good enough measurements, especially on the height.
Yeah, well, we in the swarm we have to have RTK. When you're swarm flying, RTK is vital. Trust me, because as you say,
do you use a local station or a remote anti-rip station? It then depends.
we're local always. So swarm is always local. So you've got the RTK base station literally sat in front of the GCS in an open area, and then that's received, pumped out to the swarm for accuracy. But RTK, which is why with DJI, the vision sensors, you don't need RTK for return to home or anything.
Hey, you're on the Elon Musk group, because you're on his bandwagon. He says that lidars are not useful, GPS not useful. It's only vision.
I say, no, you do need GPS as well as the vision. You know what I mean? You need the GPS for the route back, and you need the vision sensors to avoid the object, if you like.
Do you check the space weather before you do a display?
Do I check what, sorry?
Space weather.
Space weather is a good question.
Oh, the KP index. Look, I look at it, but it won't stop me from flying. I'll look at it, but it won't stop me flying, Bruce. If the ground station is saying everything's good to go, if those drones are all reporting back they've got good GPS, if it's all green and it's all lit, and they will do their self-diagnostics, and then I'll let them go. But it does come down to the fact, are they all reporting they're correct? So on the grid, if you've got 50 drones or 100, you'll have your RTK base station. You're then pumping out your RTK signal out. And our grids are typically spaced 3 meters apart. So everything's 3 meters apart. You can see all the drones on the GCS. So you see which direction they're facing. So it's vital they're all facing the right way. They're all lined up. And if they're moving about on the spot before they get their RTK lock, it looks like a bit of a mess. And then as they get their RTK locks, they all start locking themselves into their positions. And you can see if it's not happy. And if it's not happy, you can either take that one drone out and replace it with another one, just because sometimes we all know how drones can be. Nothing's ever what you call perfect every day. Sometimes they can just be a niggle.
How do you reprogram it to tell it the new ID when you change the drone out?
No, you don't need to, interestingly. So let's say you've got 100 drones in your swarm. You don't have to put 1 to 50 out. You can put the middle 50 out, or 10, 30 from the front, 20 from the back. It doesn't matter, because they're all allocated, if you like, an IP. So they're all on the big Wi-Fi network that they're broadcasting everything over to them. So it doesn't matter what numbers you put out at all. If you're flying 20 drones, they can be number 100 and number 1 in the same 20. It doesn't matter. It just allocates them their takeoff points when it sees them on the grid points they're on.
Right. So it knows where they are. So it knows that IPs with that location, that drone.
Yeah, and then it uploads its particular mission to that particular drone.
Hey, Mark, you shouldn't have said that. Now you're a target for denial of service attacks. Imagine.
But so your spare ones, let's say someone goes rogue in your on the ground, you switch that. Would you physically switch that one off, or would you say I don't want that in the swarm anymore? And do you have 4 or 5 at the side ready to go? Now one of those is taking its place, or do you have to go and put it out in the grid?
I have to go and swap it out. You literally have, and this is the same for everyone who flies swarms. You'll go and you'll physically take it and swap it. And everyone that runs swarms will tell you they always have a few spares, because you never know if something gets damaged in transit. If you've got a crew working with you and they've handled drones before, there's always the risk someone could drop one. So you always, if you're flying 100, you want 10% spare. You want 10 spare, for example, just because it's just safer than
because. Yeah.
If you're flying 50, you'll have 2 to 5 spare. If you're flying 20, you probably have 22. You just always have a few spare, because it's easy for someone to drop one when laying them out, for example.
And if you're flying 5, you just have a couple of spare motors.
If I'm flying 5, I expect all 5 to work.
What's a swarm of 5 look like, Mark? What can you do with that?
A 5, you could do a dice 5. You could do a nice rotating. It's really bizarre, because you see a lot of big swarms, and you can get a lot of detail. So think of it as like pixels. Your monitor pixels. The more you've got, the better the resolution. So if you've only got 5, you can't do a lot. But if you think back to old 8-bit computers and doing graphics, for little 8 bits, it's quite interesting. Can you replace them halfway through a display? So no, if a drone is coming out at that point, it's coming out at that point. So if you were to force land one, or one leaves a swarm for any reason, there will be a hole in the show. And you will often see this on YouTube videos where you'll see you can start working out, okay, they've lost that particular one for any reason, if it took off or not. You can stagger takeoffs. So if you were flying a 200 drone show, for example, you can have 100 go first, and then 5 minutes later you could have another 100 join them, and then part way you'll have the first 100 land, but the second 100 would stay on doing the show, so you can stagger the flying.
It'd be cool if you took off with 100 all lit up and going, and then another 100 took off quietly, and then went into the display, and you turned it on, suddenly it was double the resolution or double the brightness. Do you do that?
Yeah, you could do that. You could take off you could take 100 off in the dark with them completely on off. So there are a couple of interesting things though about that. A lot of the national aviation authorities don't like them being off for too long.
So do you have to have strobes on them?
No. But
wouldn't that kind of upset the light show effect if you had strobes on them?
Yeah. So they're not strobe lit, but if you're within the swarm volume, you're better off saying, look, if any are switched off or got their lights off, they are within 50 meters of the main swarm volume, for example. We do a 20 drone show and we play breakout. So, where you got the 2 paddles going up and down like this, and the ball goes across the middle. In that particular show, there's 4 drones that are not actually used. And what they do is they come down and they sit low. They're only about 6 meters off the ground, but they just have their lights off and just sat there. So we know they're there, but the rest of the show will continue. But you wouldn't know unless you really knew to look for them.
So it's almost like they expect there's going to be aircraft buzzing all around this 50-meter box, manned aircraft buzzing around the 50-meter box, doesn't it?
Oh,
it's crazy.
It is. You actually have to have, so for the UK, for example, you have to have an ADSB device. You have to have something that can pick up ADSB. Now, flying at night, there's a lot less aircraft. Flying in the daytime, there's a few more. But where we fly, we've got an airfield not far from us, we never pick up their signals from them. So their aircraft are just not using it. Air ambulances will flag up because occasionally you might see an air ambulance whizzing by somewhere or a helicopter. But everyone else, generally, you don't see them unless they're flying well over us.
And that's only ADSB in they want from you. They don't want in out, so your display is being announced, as it were.
No, so we have to have a standing NOTAM. We have to have a NOTAM. In the UK, if you're flying a swarm, so we can go to 600 feet, so we can go above the 400 feet statutory limit because that's in our risk assessments. So we have a NOTAM and it stands and it's seen on the apps where 600 feet is our maximum. It's really interesting because the CA actually add 50 feet on top of that, so it's 650. We've seen planes overfly us at over 1,000 feet, 1,200. Some will phone us. I've had a couple of phone calls about manned aviation flying over, and they've rung me and said, we're flying over at 2,000 feet. I says, go for it. You're well above me. I've got no issues at all, kind of thing. And I had someone doing some inspections on a railway line not far away I think it's an old disused one for one of the power stations. But they were a good mile plus from us, but they were doing their due diligence. So.
Can you imagine the horror on the faces of a CAA person if they attended the BMFA free flight nationals? When they're there, where everyone goes up at once. Oh my God! How do they control that? What is there like a global national NOTAM and no-fly zones or what?
That's
I'm working towards being that bloke with the Panama hat. And look, here we go. I've got to get the check shirt like you. But I adore that event at Old Ward. It's called the Mayfly, isn't it?
You stand.
You
Mills 75 to the side of the head. Oh,
exactly. And it's just a field full of old, well-dressed gentlemen chuckling as exactly
trying to kill
happens.
each other.
all around themselves. So it's like, oh, say, duck, or watch out, and all that sort of thing. And then the best one I saw there was one of those free flight helicopter
there's yang
wings.
things that spin around. Yeah, they take your head off.
And that was like, bloody hell. Everyone was, oh.
Yeah, but a tomboy between the eyes won't do you any good.
But the detail they put into those free flight models, the detail they put into them is astounding.
And then the wind's really going, really starts going or whatever, and they're still all chuckling away and chucking them out, and they're just wrong, it goes backwards, you know. It's, yeah, I love that. That's one of my goals in life.
For those who haven't seen this, go on YouTube. You'll find some videos. I think T. Bob Rapport has a couple of videos of the BMFA Free Flight Nationals, and you will not believe the carnage, the danger, the risk. And old modelers just take it in their strides. As I say, CAA officials would be having coronaries. They'd be wheeling them out on stretchers if they saw that stuff.
You might get. Go on, Mark. Sorry.
It is a great event. If you know, the BMFA National Satellite's not been at Barkston for a while now, because normally it's at Barkston Heath, the Nationals, and they have the free flight there as well. It is crazy. It is free for all. When you go there, you've got to be careful where you go and stand, because if you want to watch it, don't make the mistake of standing anywhere near or 20 foot or 30 foot into the field. Stay on the outer edge to watch, because even there, it is amazing. The aircraft and the detail they put into this stuff is just amazing.
But some of these older, I've looked at some of the older YouTube videos, old newsreel, the newsreel footage of model flying events, and they had these massive, like 6-foot free flight models with the old petrol motors on them, and all these people standing around in suits everywhere, and they're taking off and crashing into the crowd, and it's like, yeah, no worries, there's no health and safety, there's no flag marshals, there's no keep out barriers, and yet, we're still here as a species. We didn't kill ourselves. I just get so. We are such pansies now, such sissies.
Well, yeah, it's all about it was risk assessments and not daring to take any risk, isn't it? That's the trouble. We've got to take a little bit. Again, I've been on LinkedIn. I've been kind of arguing people. People are talking a lot now about the future pilots for these air mobility vehicles, and at the end of the day, it can be no more than that. If they're expecting to hand fly, and again, I've been thinking about that. I personally would ban if any of those kept going, making landings into confined areas or off airfield landings, off program, off the route landings, because you will not. You can guarantee the man will get the thing out of shape. The man will force the thing out of shape so it won't fly. You can guarantee
Mind you, I don't know. I would rather trust a set of epaulets than some pimply-faced programmer who's high on Coca-Cola and half asleep through 4 cases of pizza. Look at the Max 8 debacle.
True. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Well made.
I mean, there was that guy that posted that London one that I saw you put on there, right?
Anyway.
But exactly, right. So he's going, we'll be able to fly through London, with this eVTOL, this and the other. We already have helicopters doing it, and he's still got to overcome one final little thing. Anyway, physics does not work well for eVTOLs. They have still got to solve the physics problem.
Well, it's even simpler than that. It was time. He was suggesting the end-to-end thing would be 15 minutes. There's no way you'd walk into but even the helicopter, isn't it? By the time when you walk in, you go into the terminal. It's not a 15-minute experience. And as people were saying, it's a 50-minute. It would be 15 minutes just to sign up and say, yeah, I'm here. Weigh my bag, weigh me, get on the thing. Right, everyone's sat down, everyone's strapped in, everyone's safe. There's 5 minutes. Here we go. Hello, air traffic control. I'm going there. There's 2 or 3 minutes. We haven't gone anywhere yet. We're still sat on the helipad. We're half an hour in.
And then there's the digital exam in case you're a terrorist. The old, that's the way. Well, modern technology, it's wonderful.
Yes, it's digital. Yes.
I still don't see how they're going to be financially viable. I still don't understand.
It's not important.
Carry more than 2 people in it. because one's going to always be the pilot. So it's got to carry 4 people as a minimum, you would think. But hang on a minute. How many people do you know go around in 3s?
Well,
Triads.
that's triads. Yeah, you sat there waiting on the ground for the thing to fill up, aren't you? The bus isn't leaving till we're full. And so it's just a nonsense. And there's somebody in the comments said, but you can get a train from there for 50 minutes straight across London. You know, it'll cost you not buttons, but a few quid rather than whatever the huge amount of money. Anyway.
London's interconnected network of the trains, the buses, and everything else actually is one of the best around, because you just tap your card. You can have an Oyster card, but if you just go in and tap your debit card and you tap when you leave, you get charged X amount for the whole day, and it doesn't matter if you're jumping on the trains or the buses or anything else. You can get around like nowhere else I know. What's really funny is when a Londoner comes north and goes, don't you have night buses? It's like the buses stop around here, about 11 o'clock, half 11. You're not going anywhere by bus, let alone by train or anything else. It's really funny.
Actually, I think the longest part of any journey like that will be the disclaimer you have to sign before you get on board.
It will be. It will be. It'll all be all the faffing around. So this guy just saying 15 minutes, you'll be in. No, you won't. You might.
And that crowd that's doing it in New Zealand, is it Whisper? Down south. Yeah. They're saying it'll be I think it was $3 per passenger mile or something. That's the target they're aiming at. Ridiculous. No way you're going to do it for that.
Yeah.
Well, hang on a minute. $3 per passenger mile. So to go 10 miles,
$30.
$30.
Hang on a minute. I think a taxi is going to be cheaper than that.
Yeah, but it's not about the price. It's how can you make a profit at that?
Speed,
look at the capital. Look at all the, they never make a profit at that.
Oh, they'll make him pay the ULEZ charges. Don't worry.
Oh, well.
So only flying air taxis made before 1957 or something will be able to fly in that part of it.
And we'll make them drive at maximum 20 miles per hour like in Wales.
In Wales.
Oh,
Louis completely on top of the international news.
He is, isn't he? He's a maven of news.
I was going to say, the 20 mile per hour rule in Wales is just scary.
Won't someone think of the sheep?
Exactly. the humanity. Oh, the barmanity or whatever. Yeah.
Oh, so I guess Ian will be late for everything.
Well, he'll have to.
No change there then. No change there. That's all I'll say to that. No, we're definitely talking rubbish now. An hour and 11, and my power is going off shortly. So before we go, has anyone else seen anything else?
I don't think there's much else to comment.
Just my rebate. No. Get your $50 rebate from the FAA.
If you get that one to stick, if you get that to be going as a rumor, because if enough people say it enough times, it'll become fact.
And also, I've basically said, if it's safety, the president's been set $50 back, and if it's not going to give a rebate, then it's not safety, is it? It's nothing to do with safety.
Bruce, you need to be given the FAA's email address for their UAS department to reach out to them to get your $50.
I should do an online form.
Enough people say it, then people will believe it's true.
Yeah.
They will. They will. And on that bombshell, dear viewer, wherever you are in the world, thank you very, very much for joining us. I really do appreciate it. We will see you at 2100 GMT next week to see if it's sunk in a little bit more that RID is now a thing. Look after yourself. See you next week. Bye-bye for now. There's one click.